In 399 BC, the Greek philosopher Socrates was on trial, accused of impiety, of not showing proper respect to the Greek gods. Socrates argued in his own defense, saying that his quest for truth was all-encompassing. He concluded, in today's vernacular, by stating,
"It is from virtue that prosperity, both for individuals and society, flows naturally. This is the core of my teachings."
Virtue is defined at dictionary.com as moral excellence and acting in accordance. Socrates stated that it was a virtue that ultimately brought prosperity to individuals and to the collection of individuals known as society. Makes sense. Absent lies and manipulation, everything can run smoother, more harmoniously. Yet the so-called authorities of today do not seek widespread prosperity, but rather to insulate themselves at the expense of others. They operate not according to virtue, but to falsehood. Consider the crusade Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren is on.
There's a new threat out there. It's crypto.
Warren is trying her damnedest to vilify technology because that technology undermines establishment control. 4 months ago, our Why We Build segment detailed Warren's efforts to target crypto through a bill. We noted, the proposed legalese targets anonymity-enhancing cryptocurrencies, crypto ATMs, mixers, miners, self-custody wallets, and, if they left anyone out, any other person facilitating or providing services relating to the exchange, sale, custody, or lending of digital assets. One commenter said unequivocally, it would impose a de facto ban on crypto in the USA. Since then, Warren has kept up her efforts. In recent weeks, her bill gained attention because 5 more senators signed on, bringing the total to 19, who are now on record supporting this draconian legalese. Warren says she's driven by the need of those at the Treasury Department. Her bill, by the way, would empower FinCEN, which is part of the Treasury Department, to have more enforcement muscle, to classify cryptocurrency endeavors and coders as financial institutions, and thus be subjected to their decrees. What the Treasury employees told her isn't a surprise. It's akin to asking the schoolyard bully if they want to expand their operations from the playground to the hallway. To try to make her perspective seem the norm, Warren has invited for input the very people who have the most to gain from her bill.
We had a long table with the CEOs of all of the largest banks in this country. And when I asked the question, should the rules that apply to their banks, should the same rules be put in place, every single one of them said, absolutely.
One of those people was Jamie Dimon, who heads up the largest bank in the world by market capitalization. His thoughts?
I've always been deeply opposed to crypto. If I was the government, I'd close it down.
Of course, Dimon and his fellow bankster execs want to curtail their competition. Warren also invited for input a lawyer named Wiseman, whom she called an expert, in her press release. That's strange because on Wiseman's faculty page there's no mention of blockchain or cryptocurrency in his interests or presentations or publications. There is, however, mention that Wiseman spoke at a BAE Systems event, which, to the unaware, is the biggest arms dealer in Europe and one of the largest globally, including to the US regime, who, in the words of UK-based rapper Loki,
"First in my scope is BAE Systems, specialize in killing people from a distance."
Why would Warren give the podium to someone who associates with one of the largest arms producers for the world's largest terrorist organizations? Yet she claims to want to combat terrorism. But again, just what currency is used the most to launder money, and what institutions are involved? The U.S. Federal Reserve Note, and the legacy banking institutions. To go on a tangent for a moment, if Warren is so concerned about money laundering, why doesn't she focus on her colleagues at the CIA? Through the decades, they have relied on money laundering and the movement of substances said to be illicit to fund their operations. Look at Air America, which the CIA used to run drugs in Southeast Asia for decades. Or at Gary Webb, who uncovered the CIA's involvement in moving tons of cocaine into Los Angeles and other U.S. cities during the 1980s. Or at the CIA's protection of the Corsican gang who distributed heroin globally and became known as the French Connection. Or the fact that Afghanistan's opium yield was the highest under their watch. To claim to care about terrorism and money laundering and not point the finger at the biggest culprits, her DC-based colleagues, is flatly disingenuous and absent of virtue. But to be fair, despite Warren's deception, she has uttered some truth.
There's a new threat out there. It's crypto.
Crypto is a threat to the establishment, which is why Warren has been so strident and why she so liberally uses terms like terrorism and money laundering.
Terrorism, money laundering.
To attempt to redirect and set the narrative. But Warren and her establishment cronies overestimate their own abilities and underestimate the abilities of those they have so long manipulated. Even if Warren's bill were to pass, and I think that's a stretch, it cannot be enforced without compliance. Cryptocurrency presents a peaceful, effective means to bypass corrupt, destructive institutions, and more people are waking up to that fact. We can build something better, and maybe, just maybe, those who today act without virtue will ditch their old ways and join us.
My goodness, talk about striking the root and being thorough. He's a good man and thorough.
That's a nice reference. If anybody missed it, that's Henry David Thoreau.
Yes, I don't know.
Strike the root?
I'm embarrassed to say that I thought I was quoting The Big Lebowski.
Oh, okay. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. It was Walden, the author of Walden, I believe, that was also the author of Civil Disobedience, who coined the term "strike the root." But I could be wrong.
No, I'm so strike the root. I am sure that you are right. Good man and thorough. Big Lebowski. We're both right. Sven, calling us from Germany. How are you today?
I don't mean to interrupt your, truth-finding discussion, but yeah, hi there, and pleasure to be with you guys.
You are here today to help us find more truth, Sven, and we are going to talk about a current funding proposal for an organization where you are not only like the lead, I guess supervisor is the correct term, but I just want to say this right off the bat. You are professionally, like in your job, in your real, not real, but in your full-time work, you work in investments. And now
it is a real job.
Volunteer, you volunteer as in you get paid zero.
That's
to
true.
Then bring that professional expertise you have to the Dash Investment Foundation. Is everything I just said correct?
That's correct. I run an investment company. It's called C9 Capital. The C9 is an incredibly geeky reference. Somebody who may have programmed Z80 processors in machine code a long time ago might recognize that somehow, but I don't want to get further into that. That is my main role, where I do very similar things to what I'm doing at the diff, minus a lot of the housekeeping. There's no community outreach in my day-to-day job, or marketing, proposal writing, those sort of things. But in terms of creating deal flow, finding investment opportunities, due diligence, it's all the same. And I do also do consulting work for startups mostly, and help them get funding, help them through the funding process. So, yeah.
Okay. So why would someone with your level of experience, your pay grade, volunteer his time to be given zero money in return? Why are you volunteering for the Dash Investment Foundation?
It's a good question. Sometimes I'm asking myself the same question, and I don't quite understand it. But it is, I think it is born out of the desire to help Dash and to do something useful for the community. It's what I put in my application, blurbs also, 2 years ago when I first ran for it. I saw that, Dash needs a little more help. There should be some fresh blood coming in the community. And I was looking at myself, what can I do? I'm not really a coder. I'm quite well versed with computer issues. I do some coding on my side, but I would never step up to a quantum explorer, for example, and get in the nitty gritty of coding. I am also not a very media savvy person as yourself, Amanda. So what I can do, though, is the kind of expertise you just pointed at. And when this opportunity came up about working for the diff, I thought, man, that's that's right down my alley. So I applied, I got elected in, and I've been there ever since. So and now I see I see the work needs to be done. There isn't really a whole lot of other people who are willing to do it. Some people might know, there is one supervisor slot is currently open, because there weren't so many candidates the last election round. And so I don't want to see the diff fail. I did not set it up, but it does feel by now a little bit like sort of my baby. It's not really, you know, it's like I came in much later, but still I have invested a lot of personal like sort of emotional investment, if you will, that I don't want to see it fail. And I want to at least bring us to the first major exit.
So now, are you possibly laboring under a sunk cost fallacy where you think that people should put money and effort into the diff simply because it's there and we've put money and effort into it in the past and you don't want it to fail? Or can the diff bring value to the Dash network? And
Right.
if so, how?
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. And I see a lot of the discussion on our proposal centering around that very question, right? And I think some of the votes that we're seeing, the no votes, or people having a somewhat ambiguous attitude towards this proposal or towards the diff in general, they may have different definitions of what value means to them. As we understand it, with me, I specifically don't just mean me personally, but also the supervisors that are currently on the board, we see the diff as it operates today, first and foremost, as a tool, a middleman, if you will, that sits between the treasury and commercial startups that get ultimately funded from the treasury. But instead of going directly to the treasury, getting a bunch of money as a gift, running away with it, and then maybe pray and hope they actually deliver. In the past, many times they haven't. Instead of that, the diff takes the money and then hands it out to those startups in a way where we get equity in those companies, legal equity that the Dash DAO itself could never do, which gives us also the right to enforce certain things. And that has, for example, when somebody promises to deliver, say, Dash Direct, we can, there is now an ownership relationship to the parent company that develops this product that ensures that this product will actually get developed. Now, I don't want to take all the credit for Dash Direct. I'm pretty sure Marshall has been involved in the community for a long time, but I'm still pretty sure without the diff, I'm not sure this product would ever have really seen the light of day without our investment. And there's a laundry list of other, like if you look through our portfolio companies, there is a very clear recurring pattern where we invested in companies that help support and enrich the Dash ecosystem. Not all of these efforts have ultimately panned out in the long run. The Dash Direct got killed, for example. But that's not like you can't fault us for that. That's not that's beyond the diff's responsibility. It got killed due to external factors because they lost their payment system relationship. Same goes for Valkyrie. When the Dash Trust Fund was first launched, the community was ecstatic about it. Wow, you have an instrument for like retail investors. People can put their retirement funds in an IRA and invest it in Dash, and people loved it. Ultimately, it didn't get enough subscriptions, and it got to the point where it wasn't viable for the company to continue the trust, and it got killed. But again, it wasn't for the lack of trying from the diff. We made sure that this product got launched in the first place. So similar at Edge Wallet, right? That the fact that Edge Wallet is featuring Dash wouldn't have happened without the diff. Or another one, 88i. Actually, I saw there was one question I saw. I believe it was on Discord. Like, can you name an example where a company came to you and says, "Hey, you have this great platform product, and can we build on it?" And yeah, funny you ask, whoever asked the question, but yes, that actually did happen. 88i is a Brazilian insurance tech company who came to us and wanted to build their back-end business processes on Dash platform. And I'm thinking, man, that's awesome. Like you have the chance of creating a real life business use case on a pretty major scale that you can then go and shop around as a demo, as a business case to potential other investors, and would be fantastic. Well, unfortunately, as we all know, platform is slightly delayed. So 88i is on our portfolio, but obviously they can't release a product on platform, and platform doesn't exist. So, and they also can't wait forever. But those are really examples of where the div is bringing the kind of value to the Dash ecosystem that we are most proud of. And we don't see ourselves as a trading organization. In the way we are set up nowadays, we couldn't, even if we wanted to, be actively trading and then try to create financial returns and buy low, sell high, and then equalize help support the price when Dash hits a bear market. That's a secondary goal, of course, to create financial returns, to make good money, and then use that money, if there's enough of it where it makes sense, where it actually moves the needle, to potentially buy back Dash and burn it. That was the idea that Ryan Taylor floated in the beginning when he first set up Dash. And this way, support the price. But we are still far away from the scale where that would make sense. But I hope we'll get there someday.
Yeah. So sorry, I was just out there. Let us jump into our first question here. Doc Agnew asks, do you think that paying diff supervisors would create a more effective and responsive diff for the Dash network, or do you stand behind the volunteer model?
And we sort of touched on that earlier a little bit, right? Like it sometimes gets to the point where I'm asking myself, like, why am I actually doing this? I think payment would solve some of the problems that we're seeing, or at least alleviate them, not necessarily completely solve them. But at the same time, it would open up a list of new problems.
Well, that's a super valid question, right? Because, I mean, like, how many long time has whoever the head of DCG has been like, yo, guys, listen, we've got some people we've got all kinds of people who are working for less pay for us than they would elsewhere. We even have some people who have taken a pay cut, and they're like waving this banner all over the place as to like a reason that they should be, given all kinds of slack. And maybe that's exactly right. So if that's right, then should volunteers getting paid zero not be given like even more slack? That's all I want to say about that.
Yeah, and so I mean, I don't want to call for slack for the diff. I think we've
what?
I mean, okay. Let me define this more. With Slack, I mean, the diff could be run in a much more professional way than it is today. As everybody who's been following us knows, our community outreach, communication with the community isn't exactly on a level where it should be. There's a lot of things like, how long did it take before we finally got the last election out the door? So I think the community has given us quite a bit of slack already, in that sense that they, accommodate certain things being late, or people rightfully asking for more transparency in the accounting and quarterly reports and such. There's definitely much more that could be done. And of course, if you introduce a financial incentive to do that, you would have a tool to get it done. Like right now, it's you have no, you can't pressure anyone into doing anything really at this point. Like we are 6 supervisors. We are all equal on an equal level. There's no reporting hierarchy. There's no one person who can say you do this, you do that, and if it doesn't get done by Friday, then this thing will happen. So the result is that things may happen when anyone gets to it, and sometimes it takes forever, and it's not very good. So being able to pay someone and says, here, get it done, you get paid for it. And if you don't get it done, you don't get paid, is of course is an effective tool. It would require quite a bit of restructuring on one hand, though, because like I said, right now we're not really, there's no reporting structure, right? Then it would open up the question, who gets to decide who should do what and for what kind of pay? Are you going to get paid by the hour, or you get paid when it's done? And who is going to do which work? It almost necessitates there being some sort of reporting structure where there is somebody in charge who can tell people, here, please get this done by Friday. And if you don't, then you don't get paid.
I sure hope that you guys are able to work that out, Sven, because that is actually why I did not run this a second time for diff supervisor. Yeah. I was diff supervisor the first year that it existed, and I experienced exactly what you're describing, which is 6 people, none of whom is in charge by design. And so no one can hold anyone else accountable. Literally, no one is able to hold anyone else accountable. I tried once, and that was a very unpopular move. So anyway, I hope that you all are able to get that sorted. I really, really do.
I mean, when you were on, I believe at that time there was a professional fund manager on board, at least for some period of time. And I think that was the intended model back then when the diff was first created, right? There was supervisors were meant to supervise, as the term says. Like you get together once a month or something and make sure things are running smoothly. And otherwise you check off, you make some decisions, and that's it. But the day-to-day business of marketing, outreach, due diligence, creating deal flow, communication, and so on and so forth is done by a hired person who gets paid for it. That's a good model, but in the past we haven't had the funding to have a person on staff doing this full time or even on a contract basis. So, and that leads to the other question, right? One thing is creating a hierarchy or a reporting structure internally to enable this is one thing. The other thing is that then the community, of course, needs to be willing to pay for that too, because that will significantly increase our cost base, going from very little, a couple bucks we pay for hosting. Well, actually, the director's fees are quite a significant chunk, but that would add a significant step up on our cost base. And if you see that the community even has a hard time even approving money for the investments themselves, how much can you expect them to, on top of that, also approve funds to be used for paying people, right?
Right. Okay, well, I want to zoom out a little bit from our sort of like operations speak that we've been in. And I want to talk about, and this is where I'd like to get Ryan's input, because Ryan has mentioned many times in the past that we find ourselves in a somewhat unique situation in Dash, in that we obviously had no kind of ICO whatsoever. And to our knowledge, to the best of our knowledge, we have had no real venture capital interest in Dash either. These two things combined with having no like traditional foundation means, in my view, does it kind of mean to you also, Ryan, that it means that Dash needs like some unique like money arm, like money flex, or like what are we missing in that? And can the diff fill this role that other coins get filled with ICOs and VC funding?
Yeah, I'll speak to that. And I'd also like to back up, like you said, and give a little bit more context to what we're talking about. We're about 25 minutes in, and we haven't really talked about, so if you could do my screen share real quick.
Yeah.
I want to at least get on screen what we're talking about, which is the actual proposal. And I'm going to log out just for a minute here so that people don't see all my votes and whatnot for the comments. But the proposal that we're talking about is pretty short, and everybody should at least read it in its entirety. And I would highly recommend that everybody watch this video as well that Sven posted as part of the body of the proposal. This is, in my opinion, absolutely required in order to have an informed decision on this vote, to see where these numbers are coming from, because we haven't talked about these, but in my opinion, like, the diff is one of the most quantifiable proposals in terms of cost benefit that we have. We have actual numbers, and granted, those numbers are based somewhat on assumptions about valuations for their portfolio. But I think that those, and that's why I recommend watching that video, because Sven talks about where those valuations come from. And another bit of context that I'd like to give is, why are we at the Incubator even talking about this? You know, isn't the Incubator supposed to be just doing development funding and you know, coding and stuff like that? Well, I see it as we share somewhat of the same vision, and that is to incubate projects. And on our side, we're trying to incubate developer projects that add value to Dash. And on the Diff's side, they're trying to incubate startups through equity financing, and that also similarly add value to the Dash ecosystem. And those are very, very similar goals. And in my estimation, the diff is even more quantifiable, whether this is beneficial to Dash or not, as far as I'm concerned, even more than pretty much any organization in Dash, because of the fact that they can track the valuation at which they invested in and the valuation at which these companies are currently valued. And yes, part of that is that those valuations are illiquid, but they are still nonetheless valuations. And to give some more context about to address the question that you asked about venture capital, mm-hmm. Yes, I see this as absolutely necessary that we figure out how to add value in the Dash ecosystem independently. And by that I mean, like, you talked about how we didn't have an ICO. We didn't raise funds for Dash. We had to bootstrap value in the coin itself through internal means only. We didn't get a bunch of dollars that we can keep people employed with. And so that's pretty much the same thing that venture capital does. Is it does help these companies. You know, it provides funding for the developers of these companies to start building value and have increase that value. And there is some nuance about how that value is increased. I think partly there's so much to say about this that I'm stumbling a little bit, but I think it would be difficult for somebody in the community to kind of put me down and say, hey, Ryan, are you actually for venture capital or are you against venture capital funding? And the nuance is that I think that venture capital activities, such as what the diff is doing, is absolutely crucial to figure out. But I'm extremely critical of venture capital in the fiat world and how that's destroying businesses. So in any case, I'm very, very supportive of this proposal by the diff. And I would love to see it funded, frankly. So I just put that out there. If anybody's, curious about why, that's, I guess, what we can talk about. But part of what I wanted to ask Sven about is part of the proposal and a lot of the discussion that I've seen is related to this sentence that, and maybe you can bring up one times comment because that is the sentence that I'm trying to refer to, the one of six, the one comment that you had up there. The DIF's current proposal says we'd like to start building a war chest for potential future investment opportunities. And I'd like, Sven, for you to talk about what that actually means, because in my mind, this concept of building a war chest is kind of the crux of the issue that a lot of people, I think, are against. And I don't see it as a war chest. Maybe the terminology was wrong, but you really just need some funding to be even considered in this space. You need some kind of, nobody's going to talk to the diff if they know that the diff has zero funds. So could you talk more about that?
Okay. I'm cutting out. I hope is this me cutting out now?
You're good.
We can hear you.
Me. Okay. Can you see me too? Oh yeah. It looks like I'm back. Okay. Well, I heard everything you said. Just the video had a little spinning circle thingy there for a while. Yeah. Well, what's the reason why we suddenly came back with this proposal? The truth is, we've been talking about restarting funding proposals for quite a while, and similar to how I touched on how long it took to get the election out of the door with the proposals was a similar issue. We've been talking about it since late spring, early summer. And then, of course, we felt like we can't go back to the community and ask for money before we've given them a good rundown of what we've done with the money that they already gave us. And so preparing the report,
we might have to have
finally, when we okay, let me pause the video, stop count.
Thanks.
Does it help?
Yes.
Yeah, let's try it.
Okay. So that dragged on for a while, and of course, then when the conference in Salt Lake City came about,
Bummer.
People of what the diff is, what it stands for, run through a little bit of the history, and our portfolio situation. And then following that, then we said, okay, now is a good time. We every video, hopefully, that should answer most of the questions. It shows the community that things are actually looking pretty good. So now is a good time to go back and ask for money again. The 4 reasons or the 4 bullet points I put up there, at first I noticed people latched on to us taking over DCG potentially. And yes, the comments are completely true. That is a relatively small cost. That's not what triggered this proposal. It might have hastened our decision to push it out of the door now, but it wasn't the reason for itself. The reason for it is really that we just want to keep doing the work or the mission that we understand we as the diff have, which is identify companies that want to build useful products for the Dash ecosystem and help those companies grow and enable them to grow while also having a leg in those companies and participating in their success if they become successful. Currently, we can't do that. I mean, we have barely enough liquidity to pay our ongoing costs. So if this funding proposal does not get funded, it is not going to kill the diff. We might have to dissolve the Maya pool because we put our last liquid funds into the Maya pool mostly, and
you guys make
that
up
has done
like
pretty well.
20% of the Maya, or no, I sorry. You make up a substantial portion of the Maya pool, right?
Okay.
Like big time.
Yeah, I think
I'm not sure how I'm not sure how big our share of the pool is. Am I? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you just fine. I'm sorry for having interrupted you. So you say you may need to dissolve the pool. What, like to pay directors' fees? If you don't get funded, damn this German internet. Well, while we are waiting,
I have something to share while we're waiting.
Let's do it.
You can share my screen again.
Yeah, let's do her.
If anybody hasn't seen the video, this is the structure of the diff as it was originally designed, and then they had to scale that back to. Hang on, this will come through for a second here, but they had to scale that back to, here's the history, and I think the next few slides will show what it looks like now, because they had to get rid of that fund manager who was Demelza Hayes. So here you see that the fund manager in the middle, basically covering the day-to-day operations. And let's skip through here a few slides.
And I want to note, from having been a supervisor while Demelza Hayes was fund manager, I want to expand on a comment that Sven made. Sven said earlier, like when we were talking about the operations angle of the diff, of like, you know, like, oh, it's just like organized like this flat committee, tough to get stuff done without a paid fund manager. But hey, there was that time when I was supervisor when we had a paid fund manager. And so you might be wondering, I would be wondering if I were you, well, why didn't we see some fireworks or something during that time, right? Because that's when you had what you said you want, what you said you need. And I will just say that for whatever reason, it seemed like the hire just didn't fit. The hire didn't work out. I don't even remember exactly. No, yes, I do. I think she actually left.
Yeah, I don't know.
We certainly didn't terminate the relationship on our side. So
Well,
I think that we were paying like below market rates. It was kind of more of like a novelty play on her part, and it just wasn't like a good fit between us. And so she eventually moved on. So I just want to let you know that, like, as far as what it would be like if the diff had someone who was in that position, who was paid properly, and who was super interested in Dash and seeing the diff succeed, we actually have not experienced that yet, in my opinion. So the closest we've had actually is volunteer Sven here in the committee model. So anyway,
let's bring up one time's the rest of one time's question. There was a really good part of that I wanted to get to. Oh, Sven's back. Good.
Yes.
I'm back. So I think, can you guys hear me well now?
Yes.
We can. And what was the other part of one times? It's not this, right? Because we already addressed this. Here we go. The other part says, but it doesn't say whether the new war chest funds requested would be kept in Dash or sold for USD at about $30. So what are the plans there, Sven? Should 600 Dash arrive in the diff's wallet in the coming week or two, what's the immediate intention for those funds?
So I mean, we have in our constitution a rule that, or at least in the past, we have followed those rules also to create a 70-30 balance. I think that was a balance that Demelza first came up with. That was the professional fund manager back in the day, to keep 70% in fiat and 30% in dash. In practice, we haven't really followed that for the past year, probably, anyway. And in internal discussions, I think the understanding of people is very similar to one times. I mean, with people, I mean the other supervisors, meaning that it would not make sense to try and sell Dash at the current rate because it's super low. If it were to go much lower, then at some point it gets to the point where it wouldn't really make sense to continue these things anyway. So I can't really come out here and sit here as one person and definitely confirm that yes, we are going to keep this all in Dash, but most likely that is what would have happened if that proposal had passed, or what will happen if the proposal does pass. Now, I realize that's not really a definite enough answer that might satisfy one time, but I can try get the voices from the other supervisors on that issue and post an official response to that question, maybe on Discord or on the proposal itself, if I get the other people to respond quickly enough. So
I would highly recommend doing that.
Personally, it would be my choice too, my favor, to keep it in Dash.
To keep it in Dash. I was just going to say, if you step back and look at the proposal, the 600 Dash, and it's a 3-time proposal, so total 1800 Dash. What would be the detriment of creating that Dash and putting it in the diff's control versus not creating it? In terms of, because normally what people are concerned about when treasury proposals get funded is that, that funding is then going to be, that's sell pressure on Dash. Those people that get the funding are going to sell it for dollars, pushing the price down. But at least in the short term, if the diff was to just hold on to that 600 Dash times 3, 1800 Dash as a fund awaiting a further price appreciation, it literally has no difference in terms of the market price of Dash to create it or not create it if it's going into just being held. The only difference is creating that Dash increases the market capitalization by 1800 times 30 or whatever that is. So we increase the market capitalization with no sell pressure, and we have some opportunity to then invest that for growing the ecosystem. I see very, very little downside if that was the case, that you were just going to hold it until the price appreciates a bit.
Yeah, Ryan, exactly. You're taking the words out of my mouth. That's exactly what I also felt, and I posted a comment along those lines on the proposal, and it was in fact also one of the reasons why we decided to now come forward with it. Was the budget is being increased this month, and if you add up all the proposals that are being listed there, you realize that if something big doesn't pop up in the next 3 or 4 days, then a lot of value will just go unused. Like those Dash will not be created. I understand that it might be the preference of some people to say, well, we don't really need to increase the money supply, and having fewer Dash means less supply, pushing the price up. But if we do keep the Dash in Dash until we either have investment opportunity, or no, without or. Like, until we have an opportunity and the price is right for us, then it really wouldn't make a difference. And I don't really. It's hard for me to follow the logic that it would be better to not have this dash at all, rather than having them sit there and potentially be used to create value for the dash community. So
exactly.
okay.
Even having the opportunity to have conversations with people about, oh, we have some dash to invest, that alone is valuable, let alone the actual investing of the thing and then having those things increase in value. And I just remind people, the current valuation of the DIF's portfolio is 8 times bigger than if they had just sat on the dash. I mean, to me, this is a slam dunk. Yes, we need to be funding this project. I don't understand the. I would like to understand why people are against this. I really would.
I want to ask a question in relation to the stacking of dash, Sven, which is what we're talking about now. When I was a supervisor, we supervisors did not ever have custody of any of the dash we received, understandably, because that is the director's jobs. And whether or not the directors, I guess, I don't know how to phrase this without sounding overly awkward or saying the wrong thing. Can you give us confidence that stacked dash will be stored securely, given that you supervisors don't, or maybe you do have access to it. Maybe you've set up a multi-sig. I don't know what you do. Maybe you shouldn't tell us what you do, but can you at least tell us whether we should be confident that a stacked dash would be stored securely?
Right. Yeah, of course, very valid question. I mean, dash needs to be held in a wallet, and that wallet needs to be usable, and that usually means that there is one or multiple people who have the private keys and have access to that dash. In our case, the 2 directors are those people. We have a small amount of dash under our own direct access that we can use to pay small things with. But the main device, a Treasure hardware wallet, is physically in the hands of those directors. So, which means, hypothetically, those directors could take that value and run with it. However,
that would ruin their lives.
We believe that this risk is minimal because they are well known in the Cayman Islands, offshore company world. They are not only working for us, they're also working for other companies. Their identities are fully known. They're registered with the government. So it would be unlikely that they, would take our money and run away with it. And definitely not today. The amounts of funds that are held in Dash there is relatively small. And it would not be worth it for them to risk their entire professional career and potentially have to go into hiding for the rest of their life for pulling a scam like that. Also, they have been working with us for about 3-4 years now. At times, there have been significant amounts of value in that Treasure wallet, and there has never been even a hint of an issue that they would not inform us or take things away or, in any kind of other shenanigans. So I have full trust in those 2, but I do realize that there is a hypothetical remaining risk, which would be difficult to address. If anyone has has a better solution, and let's hear.
Yeah.
Can
I mean, I wouldn't have even actually thought that that the directors acting maliciously was even that actually did not even cross my mind. No, just maybe as more value is accrued, if it is accrued, maybe just like a kind of multi-sig situation, so that no one director, who like has the treasurer in his office or something, feels like any kind of undue pressure, or even threat level. That might be really helpful there.
Yeah.
Doc Holliday
Yeah,
wants to know.
we
David Holliday, sorry. Please.
yes, I know we could set up a multi-sig, especially if. Sorry, I don't know why. I think it's
okay.
my
We can hear
connection
you.
is.
You were just addressing a multi-sig. You could set it up and what?
Okay, you can hear me.
Mhm.
We could potentially use that solution. In practice, the amounts of dash haven't been that significant, and it was more more valuable for us to be able to react quickly. So when we tell them, hey, can you do this, and can you pay that bill because it's due by the end of the week, that we don't have to run after two people to physically get together and sign transactions first, and it gets very unwieldy. So this way I can pick up the phone or write an email and says, hey, Casey, please pay the Google hosting bill. It's due. Otherwise, our website will go down, or whatever it is, and he'll just do it. So for and like I said earlier, in the past, we've held our funds roughly speaking 70-30. So there was more funds available in our bank account in US dollars, for which the two directors also had signed signature power, right? So now our bank account got killed. We were with a Signature Bank. The Signature Bank went under, as you may know, it happened earlier this year. And in the wake of that, we ended up without a bank account, and it was difficult enough to find one in the first place. So nowadays, no bank really wants to touch an ownerless, like this whole concept that we have is so alien to most of these banks, right? An ownerless company, an ownerless foundation company based in the Cayman Islands that is dealing somehow with crypto related things. Once you start explaining this, they'll go like, oh, hell, no, we don't do that. So as a result, even the remaining US dollar fiat value is held in custody by the directors. Like they're putting it in their own bank, or in the bank accounts of their companies, and we keep an ongoing ledger as to how much fiat value we have deposited with them, and it's at our disposal. We can use it. We can make decisions over it. So far there has never been an issue. It complicates payment things a little bit because we don't have a credit card anymore, so we can't make easy
the diff
bank
is unbanked. I like it.
Yeah, basically, exactly. We are unbanked. Exactly, that's exactly right.
Learning how to live off Dash. Good.
So it's not an ideal situation for us, and I wish we could go back to to having a bank account, when it comes to like making major payments to acquire shares in a company, and we're talking about a couple $100,000 being moved around. It's easier to do that with a bank transfer, with a wire transfer through the banking system. But that's the situation today. This is where our value is stored.
Yeah, I know that you have a time constraint today, and with regard to David Holliday's question that came up a moment ago in terms of how many numbers in the diff and how many numbers out of the diff at this point, Sven covered that in great detail in his presentation at the Dash Retreat. It would take far too much time for him to go over it all again now, so I would encourage you to watch the YouTube video that is linked on the diffs proposal right now for the precise answer to that question.
Can I just give a very quick answer to that, though? Because I've got the slides up right now.
Please.
The assets that the DIF holds are just over $3 million in estimated value. And the funding that they received at the time that they were funded was about $412,000. So that's where that 8x gain comes from. Sven, you want to just say anything else about that, or I think?
Yeah, I mean, of course,
covered it.
Yes. So the numbers are correct. The caveat is that those numbers are estimates. We unofficially on our balance sheet and our books, accounting books, we keep our assets at cost value, which is also in the table, the slide before that. You see the cost value of those. The estimates that lead to this higher 3+ million number are based on financing rounds that we have, follow-up financing rounds that we have observed in our portfolio companies, where those portfolio companies got follow-up funding at higher valuations, which in turn also puts our own stake at those higher valuations. So there's a solid foundation behind those numbers, but the caveat is that, of course, it is nevertheless still funny money until it's actually in the bank, or as the case may be, in the custodial account with our directors in the Cayman Islands. Until we have an actual exit event, the valuations are nice and understandable, explainable, but it's not money in our hand yet, and these shares are not traded at a stock exchange or something where I could go and like take profit, as some people asked in the on the proposal. I can't go and just turn around and sell them because, like, oh my God, I made some money and then let's go and sell it. It doesn't work that way. Why is also explained in that presentation around the 8-minute mark, but that's all I have to say about the numbers. So overall, I think it looks pretty good. We are proud of what we have achieved so far. I'm also feeling good about where we are in a typical seed funding process. And if anyone watches the video where I walk through some of the portfolio companies that have led to higher valuations, I explain why, and hopefully people will agree with my assessment.
Final question for you. And this is a question about the talent other than yourself at the DIF. And apologies if you guys covered this already while I was briefly offline. Now, is it true that the founder, the creator of the DIF, Ryan Taylor, is advisor for you all? Also, obviously, volunteer for free. Like, do you have Ryan Taylor as an advisor?
Yes, we do. Yeah, we do. He has an advisory contract with us with a salary of a symbolic $1 per year. So before people all jump up in arms, he's getting a symbolic $1 per year, which I believe, I'm not sure we even have paid him this year, that $1. So Ryan, if you're watching this, I guess we owe you $1 or something. But it was necessary, I think, to put it in the contract somehow for some legal reasons, which I'm not fully, not on top of my head. So, but essentially, yes, he is also working for free. He is participating in many of our calls, not in all of them. He does not have a vote. He does not get to set direction or tell us what to do, but he does give valuable advice. The DIF itself is his brainchild. He did bring some of the early investments and also, frankly, some of the most successful investments so far to the DIF. And for that, I'm grateful. I think having Ryan on board, I was going to say on board, but it sounds wrong because it's not the board of supervisors, but having him available is definitely helpful.
Yeah, okay, well, thanks you for clearing that up. I know you already gave your opinion on this proposal, Ryan, and I guess as we're closing up now, I would like to give my opinion on it as well. But yeah, just long story short, the fact that it appears to me that two of the most experienced, if not potentially the most experienced individuals in the Dash sphere when it comes to traditional investing, that is Sven Rosbach and Ryan Taylor, the fact that they are making themselves available to try to bring their expertise to a realm of Dash that we could really use some help in, given that we've had no ICOs and no venture capital official involvement. The fact that they are willing to bring this talent to us, not even to mention for free, the fact that they're doing it for free actually embarrasses me. I feel embarrassed. I want to pay them. But yeah, could they have done better in the past? Of course. Who among us could not have done better in the past? And how much slack have we given some other DFOs in our network? Let me go ahead and ask again. How much slack have we given some other DFOs in our network? Okay, so let's just consider that with this amazingly high level of goodwill that is being shown to us and a relatively paltry funding ask of a mere 600 Dash, that it might just be worth the risk to see what they can do with it. That's all I want to say. Does anyone?
I would say that we should keep in mind that Dash is a long-term play for me. It's a long-term play. I mean, we hear about this, the time preference and that we have long-term time horizons, and that's why we're interested in investing in Dash, because later on, 5 years, 10 years, our children will be able to have a better financial system. And that's how I see the diff. The diff is a long-term play. We cannot expect immediate gratification with them selling their positions, their equity positions, and proving that the valuations have in fact gone up. I believe those valuations are fairly accurate based on what I saw in the video. And if we continue with the diff, then we will start to see some of the upside that we have from these investments. We will start gradually divesting and taking profits, and that will most likely turn into upside for Dash, both the ecosystem and potentially the price as well. But it's a long-term play. I expect Dash to be around in 2 years and 3 years and 5 years and 10 years. And if I didn't, then why am I even here? And because I do, that's the same reason that I believe that we should continue supporting the diff, because these investments will pay off, and they will start to support the price. Right now they haven't. And I think that's another reason that some people are not supportive, because they haven't seen the actual valuations come to fruition. But I do think that those are coming. And I do think we should continue funding this because it is a long-term play.
Yeah.
Okay.
I couldn't have said it better. That's exactly right. I mean, if you bankroll entrepreneurs to grow a business, and for a startup to grow to the point where it is actually successful and can then be sold off or get acquired by somebody, or that process can easily take multiple years. And I've been on the startup side myself. I know how difficult it is to get funding and then get to the next funding round and then get to the third one. And then at some point, later investors will buy out the early investors. But that process is not something that goes from 0 to like 10x exit in 2 years. That's completely, maybe that might happen sometimes, but those are outliers. You got to be in it in the long haul, and you can't pull the rug out from underneath your entrepreneurs. So that's where we are today, and we still have a bit of runway to go, and hopefully the community will go that way with us.
Right on. All right, good closing words. Thank you for joining us today, Sven. Thank you for everyone who chimed in with comments and questions. And we'll see y'all next. Oh, no, we won't, because next week is Christmas. Yeah, Ryan?
Yeah, I don't think, well, I haven't really thought about it, but if it is Christmas, then I'm not going to be on the show, I don't think.
Okay, it is Christmas. We won't see you next week, but we'll see you the week after. So thanks, everybody.
Sounds good.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks, Sven.
Thanks, Sven.
Bye. Thanks for having me.